big interview this week. John, I'm so thrilled to be doing this, and I thought we'd just very quickly play a brief montage of some themes and have a listen to these folks and just see what car images come to your head when you hear these songs.
Mountaineer barely kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up to the ground come a bubbling crude.
Well, of course, we had just about everything there.
There's a few there, Russell.
There was Batman, there was the A-Team, there was, of course, the Monkees, there was the Munsters, Knight Rider, and, of course, Beverly Hillbillies. And there was a gentleman that I caught up with during the week who built cars for every single one of those television shows. And he's just had an outstanding career. He's been really a legend in the customising business. And during the week, we caught up with the legendary George Barris from Barris Custom Cars in Hollywood, USA. If you're like me and you can remember iconic TV shows like Batman, the Dukes of Hazzard, the A-Team, Knight Rider, Beverly Hillbillies, chances are that for every time I've mentioned that name, not only was it the stars that came into your mind when you thought about those programs, but more often than not, you thought about the iconic cars that they were actually driving in those programs. And in many cases,
that's absolutely right. Yeah.
The cars stole.
That really started right with the Beverly Hillbillies. We had that old 1922 Oldsmobile that was a jalopy.
Yep.
And that was very popular. Right on into the Munsters, which came in 1964, and we took 3 Model Ts in one and made a 6-door Model T with coffin handles and spider webs. And then Batman come in, and of course we had that pow and the bang and the wow, and we made the car act like the stars. When we say pow, a chain slicer would go out. Bang, we'd send up rocket tubes. So we made that go into it. And then, of course, the Green Hornet came with a electronic sedan, and then, of course, Knight Rider with the talking car. And so you can see all the cars were stars.
Mm. And I think, obviously, George, when we're talking about those sorts of cars, I mean, there was so many of them that just literally stole the show, wasn't it? It was something that was so different for that period.
That's what I meant. As I said, the cars were stars. They actually performed like the star themselves in the form of as a car, whether it spun out the tires or talked like the Knight Rider or did some funny things. Well, that's what the car did.
George, your career has been such an interesting period in not only the auto industry, but certainly in custom cars and that sort of thing. Can you share with our listeners, really how that amazing career started? I understand it started from models and airplanes. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. It started first carving balsa wood models, and there was in my little small town in Northern California, they used to have at the Woolworth 5 and Dime store, they used to have contests for aircraft with the rubber bands, and I'd bring in cars. Well, they'd look at me and say, well, we don't have cars. I said, well, you're going to find out that cars are going to surpass the aircraft, which they did. So I won a couple of those contests, and that was, of course, made it more interesting to when I was able to drive, and that's when I started changing the name Customs with a K. Of course, my first car was my parents gave me their hand-me-down 1925 Buick, and we had nothing to customize with other than paint from a hardware store and foxtails from a dinosaur and pots and pans. We made hubcaps, and then I took the little gold knobs off my mother's cabinet doors and put them in the grill. And when I went to school, everybody called me King of the Customizer. But when I got home, Mom couldn't get in her cabinet, so naturally I got grounded for another week.
and yet,
so that's how I started.
And despite that sort of I guess issues with Mum, the passion for customizing cars just really blossomed from there, I take it.
Yeah, and from then on, I bought myself a little 32 Ford and went ahead and nose and decked it and did all those things. And kids would come up to say, "Gee, can you do that for me?" And I said, "Yeah, if I put a set of cat-eye taillights in, it's going to cost you $10. And right away I said, "Well, I'm going to become rich customizing cars for $10 for cat-eye taillights." So that's what started, because from there on I started chopping tops and sectioning bodies. And then when my brother got out of the service, he joined me in Los Angeles, and we became the Barris brothers that just started whacking away at cars as fast as we could.
Oh, that's fantastic. For those listeners that have just joined us, we're talking to the legendary George Barris from Barris Custom, all the way from Hollywood at the United States. George, I guess you've built so many iconic cars. And I guess before we talk about the movie cars, if there's a road car that wasn't in the movies that was your favourite, is there one particular standout from a road car perspective that really is a highlight for you?
Well, a couple of cars we did that was really very, very popular and won most of the awards, and that was the a la carte hot rod. It was a little 29 Ford rod pickup.
Yep. And
it was the Grand National Roadster winner 2 years in a row. And the custom car was the Hirohata Mercury, which was a 51 Mercury that was chopped with a special top. And that kind of generated from there, and we had a shoebox a shoebox is a 50 Ford. We call it a shoebox because it was square. And we sectioned the car, made it look really more aerodynamic. And those are the kind of cars that took on the pioneering, what we call pioneering of the legends of the 50s, because we were doing those in the 50s. And they weren't movie cars. They were just all kinds of custom cars and hot rods. And that was really what generated the movie industry to get into it, because what we did in the 40s made the movies come in on the 50s. And they liked what we did because we were kind of like militants. I did the James Dean Rebel Without a Root Cause. That was a militant picture where we raced and chased people, and that was basically what we really did. And teaming up with a fellow like James Dean, he wanted to be a street racer anyhow. We taught him how to street race, and he became very, very good.
So the interesting thing about that period was, like you said, it was really the start of motoring becoming more, I guess, more not so much mainstream, but more ingrained in the culture, wasn't it? From not just a person wanting a certain sort of car, but the whole culture.
Yeah, like Motor Trend magazine said way back in the 50s that George Barris changed the face of Detroit. And it was basically true. I was doing more custom cars, and people loved them. And Detroit, like Chuck Jordan, they'd come to me and say, "We want candy apple paint." And then Borden came in and sent me a Mercury. We made into a Super Marauder. We had pistol grip steering, floating headrests, chopped windshields. And they said, "Yes, you changed the face of Detroit because you could do it fast and you didn't have to get approval from everybody on the 8th floor." That made it kind of important to see that we had the motive and the experience. We just did it. We just went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
Compared to other people that would talk about it, we wouldn't talk about it. I always told my grandson, I says, when you're ever thinking about doing something, if there's a will, there's a way, so you find a way to do it and just do it.
Absolutely.
So we learned that to be a very important thing.
George, I think, and then you touched on it briefly, where the movie thing sort of morphed in from the other stuff you're doing. And again, I know from my own experience, all those cars that we sort of talked about at the start, the Batmobile, the Beverly Hillbillies, Knight Rider, the General Lee, those cars were just became so iconic. And there's so many of them. But would you say that the Batmobile's the favourite for yours?
Well, let's say the Batmobile was the most popular, because it was the first one that really talked and did a lot of work with the stars that was appealing. We had other cars, but everybody just seemed to hook on to the Batmobile. Munsters was great. Beverly Hillbillies was great. Knight Rider was fine. We did so many wonderful cars, but it just seemed that there was a certain charisma about Batman that it wasn't what Bob Kane did in the comic books.
Yeah.
We created our own Batman, our own vision of Batman, along with the producer, which was Dozier.
Yep.
He was the one that made the script that said pow, bang, and wow. So we made the car become a pow, bang, and wow, and that's why it became so popular. But as a favorite, I would say that everybody had a favorite of their own. A lot of people loved the Munsters.
Yeah.
From the Munsters Koach, we went right into the Dragula, which was a real coffin on wheels, and the Beverly Hillbillies was a 22 Oldsmobile, and on and on and on. So each character of each car was a favorite of somebody out there that loved that show.
Yeah.
So even Knight Rider, it talked, and it had all the electronics, and it operated by itself. And so that's what made cars like stars, and that's why they generated to become, here we are, we did the Batmobile, and the Beverly Hillbillies were 1960. We're 40, 50 years, and we're still the most favorite.
Yeah.
And he shows the Fast and Furious are the young kids of 18 to 35, but they're imported cars. They're tuner cars. They're not creative cars. They're just kind of slam, bang, fast, go, spin rubber, and that's it. But they didn't talk. They didn't do funny things. They just made a lot of noise, did a lot of racing.
And I suppose in an era of computer animated movie making, that the cars that you were doing, even as recently, I guess, for the Knight Rider things, those cars had to perform for real. It wasn't done digitally, was it?
Absolutely. We had no Blu-ray or no green screens. Like, good example, Speed Racer, which was an original car from animation in Japan.
Yep.
And it was a real car. It was made out of a Corvette. But when Warner Brothers did the new Speed Racer, all they did is made one car out of foam.
Yep.
They sent it to Germany, and they put it in front of a green screen and a blue screen, and had to do all the performances by electronics, which wasn't real.
Yeah.
So the people felt it. They went to the movie and they hated it. They didn't want to go back to it. It absolutely ruined the popularity of Speed Racer because it didn't become real. It became an animated electronic wizard that was not real. So it failed. And the little old Speed Racer that I did way back years ago is still the most popular one there is because it was real.